Welcome back. This is local Tico Prohe today, bringing you a Fists Only run. Well, I should say a Bloody Knuckles run. This run is predominantly run by us punching things. Our gear is basically a bunch of armor pieces that have strength bonuses on it so that we can have the most bang for our buck punches-wise. And then we're going to use the Bloody Knuckle, which the way it operates is it basically doubles the amount of strength we have when we punch things. They do stack multiplicatively as well. Because of that, we're going to be running as Strider, although we leveled as Warrior for 190 levels and Fighter for 10. That's because Strider has a few special benefits. As far as our build goes, we have defensive augments, we have strength boosting augments, and we have Opportunism and Adhesion for climbing. You'll note in our inventory we have 20 coin purses of charity and 12 Conqueror's Periapts. We are using those only at very specific times. Beginning the run, of course, starting in the Garden of Ignominy. Now, again, the way that the Bloody Knuckles operate is that they basically multiply our strength by 2. Because we have 2 Bloody Knuckles, we are effectively multiplying it by 4. Now, you've seen the first benefit of us playing as Strider, as you saw that dodge roll. When you are a yellow vocation and you do not have a weapon equipped in the primary slot, you have access to the forward roll core skill, even without a weapon equipped. Obviously, that is going to be used to great effect. Now, the reason we didn't level as Strider is because we need enough strength to deal damage. If we level as Strider, we have considerably less overall strength by the time we hit level 200. And we just don't really deal damage to certain enemies. Chiefly like Phase 2, Daemon, things like that. But some of the more defensive enemies are quite rough to deal damage to in any meaningful way. Now, as you can already see, we've taken a few hits already. The run is not going to be a no-hit, evidently. What we are doing is, because this is a situation where there's borderline 0 chance that I make it through here, Fists Only, without getting hit, and getting hit a lot. We didn't opt for a no-hit, we didn't opt for a healing augment run. What we opted for instead is I can't bring any curatives into Bitterblack Isle for me. However, when we start the run, I am allowed to pick up augments, or not augments, I am allowed to pick up curatives inside the rooms and use those. Now, this is the second benefit of being a Strider, and it's climbing bonuses. The Strider innately gets the faster climbing speed that you get with the Gloves of Might. In addition to that, it also gains like a bonus damage modifier while climbing. It's like some 60%. It's quite good. It's very good. So you'll see that we actually deal notably better damage while climbing. As far as the calculation goes, I don't know if the Bloody Knuckles take into effect the climbing bonuses first before multiplying strength, or if they multiply strength and then add the climbing. I am guessing it's that way, where they do the Bloody Knuckles bonuses first and then the final contribution to your damage calculation is the climbing bonus, but I don't know. I would have to download in a mod that allows me to see damage numbers, and then I could do math for it, and it wouldn't be too difficult. But I have 0 mods for this game. I'm not about to start, so we're just gonna have to do it. Not to say that I don't like mods. I have no problem with mods. Mods are pretty fun, pretty cool. It's just not the way I play this game. So I have not done that. Although that would probably be the one mod I would super duper like. Now we are going into the Duskmoon Tower next. The Duskmoon Tower can have a fire drake. If it does, we will be using one of our additional items. We did not, which is nice because I don't want to have to use those. But basically, we brought the Conqueror's Periapts for only 2 circumstances. One circumstance is Daemon's Phase 2. Daemon Phase 2 has such high defenses that even leveling up 190 levels as Warrior, 10 levels as Fighter, and having quite good strength. Not the highest possible, but really high strength. We still barely tickled him in. And it made the fight incredibly long. So we opted to use the So we opted to use the Conqueror's Periapts for that. The other circumstance in which I permitted myself to use Conqueror's Periapts is actually fighting Fire Drakes. The reason for that is they have, frankly, incredible defenses. We didn't actually really do damage to them unless we climbed onto their chests and their hearts, which wasn't too difficult. The problem is we don't have high enough fire defenses so that in every single attempt that we did before using Periapts, we would just catch fire too many times and burn to death. Long before we got the kill. Obviously not what we are hoping for in a run, so we opted not to go that route, and we chose to pick up Periapts, and we are, again, will only use them on those 2 circumstances. Everything else will fight, it's just the Bloody Knuckles. And as you see, our damage with the Bloody Knuckles, not that bad. 2 punches is a little bit more than a health bar. It's like 105% of the health bar or something like that. It's pretty good. Well, when it was knocked down, it was. When it's in the air, it's like closer to a quarter. It's a little bit more than that. Obviously, we have Curative, so we're going to try and budget those for when we need both health and stamina as far as using the Hearth Buds. Eventually, we'll pick up Mushrooms, I want to say later in the run. But we'll see. There goes all our stamina. But that's not bad, right? Climb on him one time. He's got about 70% of a health bar remaining. We are okay with that calculation. The other item, if you recall, that we had in our inventory, the other tool, I should say, was a stack of Coin Purses of Charity. Coin Purses of Charity are, once again, used exclusively on certain enemies, and those enemies are the only enemies we can't actually deal any damage with Bloody Knuckles, and that's going to be ghost enemies, which is wraiths, and I think we have a couple phantoms at the end in either Rotwood Depository, if we get the ghost configuration, there's 2 of them with the living armor, or at the beginning of the Bloodless Stockades, if we have the Lich up top. Or sorry, is it a Lich or a White? I don't remember how many health bars it has. It's a Lich if it has 2, it's a White if it only has 1. I want to say that one's actually just a White if it only has 1. At any rate, we can't deal damage to ghosts with our fists in any way, shape, or form, so the Coin Purse of Charity we use. The reason I chose the Coin Purse of Charity is, 1, it does holy damage specifically, which is what we want. But 2, it's heavy. It is heavy, heavy, heavy. We got lead in our pocket. I mean, honestly, it's gold, I suppose, so that's why it's heavy. But we got... It's very heavy. I didn't want to have a lot of it. I wanted it to be a big limitation as well. So... we have the Coin Purse of Charity. I am not really permitted to miss all that much. Because not only do we need it for ghosts, but we also need it for phase 2 of living armor. To kill a living armor, after I break the armor itself, I need to land 6 hits with the Coin Purse of Charity. Which means, regardless of which configuration we have of the Fallen City, there are 3 living armors. That's 18 living armor. I only have 20. I only have 20 Coin Purses of Charity. So we have to be pretty precise. Now, I do restock at Barrack when we find him. But it's not crazy. Word of Regret. This one can have ghosts. This could be our first time using the Coin Purse of Charity. So we'll have to see. I don't recall having them here, but we'll have to see. And we do. So this will be our first Coin Purse of Charity moment. Coin Purse of Charity, incredibly powerful. Honestly, like way more powerful than I have any right to. It has a bigger AoE splash damage than it looks. When you throw one, it doesn't look like you're going to hit things a lot of the time because you throw things pretty down. But it does have a really large splash. Now after this, I'm also going to have a living armor, so I don't want to miss too many times, obviously. But we can get more Coin Purses of Charity from Barrack when we see him in the Warrior's Respite. When we get to the Gutter of Misery. So I'm not overly worried, because there's no way I miss so many that I go through 20 Coin Purses of Charity on these 4 ghosts and the 1 living armor we're going to run into. So I'm not overly concerned, but it's still something to consider. If there was a way for me to kill ghosts without using an item, or even daemon / fire dragons or fire drakes without using an item, I would have been all over that. I would have loved to. The problem is, we just don't. There isn't one. And I didn't want to run past enemies because I don't do that on any of my other runs. I don't find that the way I wish to play, so I don't. So, as I said before, when we are climbing, we deal additional damage. That being said, when we are climbing, we are super vulnerable when fighting a living armor, so I have no idea what possessed me to even make that attempt. But, you know, whatever. Because we can not dodge roll away like we just did. This guy is very keen on the full moon slashes. Which, to be fair, we are directly into his shoulder blades, extremely close. So, the full moon slash is the play. I can't really fault him. Should really only need like 2 punches. And we should be able to transition to the next phase. Now, when using the Coin Purse of Charity, you cannot dodge roll or anything like that. You are very much stuck facing the way you're facing. Well, you can change and move and things like that, but you're very much stuck in whatever situation you've presented yourself. You can't evade in any real tangible way. You can't use abilities. Another thing about the Coin Purse Charity on the living armor is that the living armor's shield is extremely potent. And it's not that difficult to accidentally hit his shield when throwing a coin versus charity, which he will block. The shield, when we were practicing, I would notice that I would occasionally, like, I guess miss him and hit the shield from like the inside of the shield. Like I'm not, like his shield's on his left side, right? I'm not hitting him from the left. I'm throwing it from the right or like behind him or in front of him. And it would get like the inside portion of the shield and it would still block the damage. And I felt like I was getting robbed every single time because again, I have a limited array. But it was an interesting problem to have. Now, I mostly did that just to knock him down. I'm a little bit annoyed that I'm getting poisoned here, but too late. So if you position yourself in the right spot, you won't get hit when he swings his arms. We are not in the right spot, clearly. Or at least, I don't know, maybe that was a poison take. But I don't think we're in the right spot. I'm pretty sure we got hit by an arm there. But if you're in the right spot, you don't get hit. So we are trying to avoid getting hit. We don't want to get hit by him spewing poison. We don't want to get hit by him swinging his arms wildly. So we are mostly just going to climb on top of his head and stay right up here. Now, when you are climbing on him, he does like the poison version of Immolate, I guess is how I would describe it. He like releases a poison gas through his skin, and that right there. And that'll deal damage to us. I don't think there's a way for us to evade that, but it doesn't seem to do a whole lot, so. I think it catches you on poison and deals like very low but consistent damage the whole time it's, you know, releasing the gas, but it doesn't do enough to really cause us concern. This is me trying to budget like how I use the curative. The Midnight Helix. I did not hear a dragon roar, which means we do not have the Frostworm. Instead, we're going to have the Prisoner Gore Cyclops. That is not what I would prefer, because punching this guy out is going to be fun. We'll go with that word. Thankfully, I want to say one of the augments we did not mention that we do have is Egression. The way Egression works is Egression makes it that when we are grabbed by any monster, when we're grabbed by something, and we have the toggle escape prompt, it only requires like half of the amount of toggle escaping to escape. So if we get grabbed, we don't really run the risk of being brutalized. We should be able to escape with minimal difficulty most of the time. Now you'll notice that I get staggered there. That thrust attack's pretty notorious for stagger anyway, but we do not have very good stagger resistances. Our armor, the assault boots, marshal's bracers, gold belt, sovereign's mantle, champions bracers or whatever they're called. I don't know. Bands, champions bands. I don't know what they're called. But whatever our helmet's called, I don't remember. None of them really have good stagger resistance. So we get staggered a decent amount this run. Yeah, stagger resistance actually 69, which is better than I would have expected. But we do get staggered a good amount this run. It's possible I'm just not used to getting hit as much, which is true. I don't often get hit as consistently as I do on this one. But we have a relatively slow attack we're using. We have to be in melee. Our range is really bad. Like, even if we had the daggers, our range would be a little bit better. But it's just not. For whatever reason, the music... Oh, the music changed because that was the Prisoner Gore Cyclops battle music. And I guess it forgot we existed, so it left. Or left combat with us. Now it should start back up again. Yep, there we go. I apologize if you hear my dog. They were play fighting earlier, so I had to attempt to quiet them down so I could record. And so I brought one of them into the office with me. And she is entertaining herself by pawing the legs of my desk. So if you hear her heavy breathing and making clicking noises, that's what she's doing. Say hello to Daisy. She was a cutie at the very least. You'll probably also hear the jingle jangle of the car occasionally. Hopefully I'll edit that out, but it'll be hard to edit out those things without messing up my voice too much, so we'll see. She is being relatively quiet, though, so I will take it. I probably could have jumped onto his face from that angle instead of going all the way over here, because he was yelling, he was stationary, but that's okay. We really don't stand any chance of doing much to this guy until we climb onto him, onto his head specifically. Mostly because the setup for his armor designs is... We probably could have just crawled down on his shoulder and been evading that grab, but oh well. This is why I didn't want to fight the Prisoner Gore Cyclops. It's not what I would describe as the best time. It's a very slow process. There is our first grab, and you see how quickly we complete this toggle escape with Egression. I don't know why we joined the Grants of Space program at the end of it, but we got launched pretty high for some reason. But yeah, that is Egression at play. A good augment if you expect to get grabbed. I often will run Egression on warrior runs and fighter runs occasionally, because those are like the two runs where I'm always up in someone's face and it's quite easy to get caught. I don't wish to be caught, so that's gonna grab, yeah. Probably would have been easier for us to go down. We jumped to, I think, early. I'm not good at climbing. Any of you who have seen my other videos probably have heard me say that more than once, but I am not good at climbing in this game. So I don't really know the ins and outs of how to avoid a lot of the attacks that enemies do, so I just get caught by things. We actually learned a decent amount doing this run, and I have done this run in the past before as well. But we actually learned a decent amount doing this run, and it makes me wish to do a climbing run, so I'll probably do a Strider run where we try and climb more or less everything when we fight it. But we'll see. There's some other runs I want to do first. So here we use Harspud sauce to heal, but also to recover stamina, because we were pretty low on stamina. And that's the nice thing about having Harspud, is because you can basically wait to use it until you're also low stamina, and it makes it extremely valuable. I know he does this shake, because we did some practice runs before this successful. Well, I say practice runs. We did some other run attempts before this successful one. So I was aware of this move. I just didn't quite remember when it starts, so I jumped off a touch early last time. But if I stay on there, he basically destroys my stamina with all of his shaking, so we decide to hop off. I might stay on here. There we go. Oh, hey. Another Sovereign's Mantle. So this is done in New Game Plus. You'll see that I have a Sovereign's Mantle already. That is not from purifying Bitterblack armors. That is because we're in New Game Plus, so we've already done it one time. The reason we went to New Game Plus is the easiest way to get a Bloody Knuckle, and we needed 2, is to complete the notice board quest in the Harbor, which is for rarefying any Dragonforged item with Barrack. And you get it the first time you go to the Harbor. You can get Bloody Knuckles by purifying Gear 3s, but we just were not lucky up until the point where I had like completed everything else I wanted to do with this character. Because this is actually the same character we did our more recent fighter run on, because if I'm going to be a fighter for that run, I know I want to be a fighter for this run. As far as leveling goes, I might as well do them at the same time. So we did. But by the time we finished the warrior run, we still hadn't gotten a second Bloody Knuckle for the gears. So we opted to just do New Game Plus because it's quite easy and efficient. I don't even remember if we made it to Grancis at this time. I want to say we went all the way through the game and beat Grigori fists only, but I don't recall whether we did it before or after we got the weapon. Right here we have the Cursed Dragon. Not honestly the worst thing. I don't like that it chose to fly into the air though, because it actually gives us a pretty decent pattern, the Cursed Dragon. We have a good pattern for more or less dealing damage to it. It's not the worst at the very least. We just bait the grab more or less, and then we hit him a couple times and we hop off. What's nice about the Cursed Dragon is the Cursed Dragon doesn't emanate damage from its heart passively like the other dragons do. So the Frost Worm emanates ice, the Thunder Wyvern emanates lightning, and the Fire Drake emanates fire from its heart passively, and its mouth, for that matter. But they emanate damage from their hearts, so whenever we climb on them while they're standing like this, we just take elemental damage and can take the effect of whatever the additional elemental effect is for those. We didn't grab the... I'm a little bit confused as to why I did not grab the... Unless we already used it, I just don't recall. But I don't see the Sour Ambrosial Meat that was in the Midnight Helix, our inventory, so I don't know if we didn't grab it or what. So what you want to do is just avoid the stamina moves that will drain your stamina. What's nice about this run is that climbing is the only thing that really drains our stamina, because we don't have actual abilities. So whenever the dragon does that shake move, we want to make sure that we're not on it, because it will cut our stamina by like a third or something like that. I don't quite remember, but it's like a third. So if it shakes like twice, we're almost out of stamina. One more time and we're basically completely out. So if we can climb on him, that's fine, but we just don't want to do it while he's about to shake. So you'll see us get off whenever it looks like he's going to do his little shake thing. But as before, we're going to bait out the grab so we can hop onto the heart. And we punch. He almost always is going to do that roar after, and then he'll either shake like this, or he'll do the spin, which is what he did after that. But we just basically keep this pattern up. It's not very difficult. Like I said, we actually get a really good pattern from Cursed Dragons for the most part. The hitbox for hearts is generally fairly generous. To let go, you could obviously use the grab button, which is right trigger, because I'm playing with an Xbox controller. But I suppose it would be, what, R2 on a PlayStation controller. It is... Goodness, what is it? I want to say it's like E? No. I don't remember what it is. Is it Q? I don't know. It's not Q. I don't remember what it is on PC. But irrelevant anyway. But you could use the grab prompts to let go. However, it's actually a little bit faster. Just opts to do a heavy attack while grabbing. What you do is you just do like a double fist swing down at enemies when you use the when you're climbing, but it makes you let go, and that's the value. That's the value. So if you're grabbing things, you just do a heavy attack and you'll let go. Nice. I'm surprised none of them got a torch toss off because we didn't go as fast as I would have liked there, but still fairly quick. Now these ranger pawns, as always, can be a problem. I always try and evade that. It doesn't often work. Nice. So now we'll kill the other ranger pawn all the way on this side, and then we'll get the last one over on the other. This guy dropping down to join us is kind of nice. I'm hiding behind the column, not from the rangers so much as the cockatrice, but it was nice to have him doing such a high damage move at the same time, because it made dodging one equivalent of dodging both, which is nice. I'm happy about that. Now what's cool about Death is that Death can put the corrupted pawns asleep. So he can't kill them with his scythe, but he can put them asleep. And him putting them asleep basically allows us to get a preemption bonus damage. I was going to say predation. That's a different augment. But it allows us to get preemption bonus damage because they are not in a combat stance. They are taking a nap. So it makes it very, very easy for us to deal with the corrupted pawns. Especially these fighters, if they get put to sleep. In fact, I would prefer Death come down here and attempt to put me to sleep so that I can hit them with it. And I can get like a nice big hit off. Because as you see, we don't really deal huge damage with our fists against these guys, even with both Bloody Knuckles, and about as much strength as we could hope to have with the Bloody Knuckles. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. Death's freaking out. We will kill these guys. We'll kill... Well, I don't know if we kill Death, but we'll beat him up. It's just not going to be quick. Watching this run is somewhat pleasing because we just finished earlier this week. Today is Saturday. On Thursday this week, I had completed a Mystic Knight Magic Shield only run, which I'll be working on that video soon. I have all the recordings collated. I just need to edit and then do the voiceover. But anyway, so that'll be out next week, would be my expectation. But anyway, in that run, against certain enemies, we do elect to punch them. the enemies that we punch are more or less things that we don't get to really reflect damage back in any meaningful way. Excuse me, that was a yawn. I don't know where that came from. I'm literally actively drinking coffee while recording this. Isn't that fun? At any rate. Certain things we can't really deal damage to by reflecting. Golems, for one. But the Goblin Shamans are really a huge nuisance. You can deal damage with your reflect damage, but you have to be all up in their face because the magical portion of our deflects doesn't really injure them in a way that we want or need. We need just considerably more damage to deal with them effectively. So what ends up happening is we try and punch them, and our punches are like so weak, even with double bloody knuckles equipped. Our punches are so much weaker than they are on this because we leveled that character 10 levels of fighter and 190 levels of Mystic Knight. And the difference between 190 levels of Mystic Knight and 190 levels of Warrior are drastic. And so like watching me punch things in this, it's a little bit more satisfying than I expected. Here we actually deal damage to death. It's not great, mind you. I mean, look at it. It's not impressive. But we actively deal 0 damage on the Mystic Knight because we just lack the strength. So it's, yeah. This would be one of those enemies that I would elect to use the Conqueror's Periapts. Because of how low the damage is. However, this is not a fight where I need to use the Conqueror's Periapts to speed it up, otherwise it's just too likely that I die, simply because there's not really anything death can do to kill me. It's very easy to evade his lantern, it's very easy to evade the scythe, so we're not like actually worried about what death thinks he's going to do to me. This should be a splat, yeah. If you are hanging on either of the sides, you can grab hold of the ledge and then drop down and not take any damage from the fall. But if you are on the front end of the room, so the balcony that we jumped from and then the balcony that we were hanging from, both of those are too high. We will take the splat damage. Now, if you have, I think it's called Grace Augment, which reduces fall damage, then you won't, or rather increases the height at which you can safely fall. Then you won't take it, but we don't. I've never used that augment in my life, so we're good. That's not true. I have used the augment before, but it's never been an augment I've used simply because I thought it was good. But yeah, Goblin Shamans become a big nuisance. Death we can't do anything to. On the Mystic Knight run when we have to punch things. Even the Goblin Shamans, like there, it's taking me 2 punches to obliterate these guys. The Mystic Knight run, it takes 3 punches if I get preemption bonus damage off on them. If I don't, it takes like 6 or something like that. And if they buff with spell screen, like it's even slower. It's kind of rough. Alright, so Living Armor. Living Armor is actually one of the main reasons why we have the Egression augment. It's hard to hit these guys without getting knocked off at times. And if I get stomped, it's sad, and we die instantly. The other one's actually the Gore Cyclops. Those are like the 2 enemies that I really need the preemption bonus damage for. Or not preemption bonus damage, the reason I need Egression. Why did I say preemption bonus damage? But eliminators are pretty rough. You want to kind of get on the back of the helmet and punch the head. We clearly don't do that much damage. But they don't have that much health. They only have 5 health bars, so it's not the worst thing, even though we're not doing great damage. When they do the hammer swings like that, we're okay, but this combo there will hit us. So we need to be safe when it comes to that combo. The other attack that they can do that I need to jump off of is the charge that they just did. If I am on the back of one's head and they do the charge, they often will knock me off at the end of the charge. If I'm in front of the head, like on the top of the helmet where the horns are, when they start running forward, I'll actually get hit by the charge itself, even though I'm like physically attached to the helmet, and that doesn't make any sense. But that'll hit me, so I need to jump off early on that one. And if I'm in the correct spot and they're not going to hit me that way, I'll get hit by the hammer when they swing at the end of the charge. So that's why we evade the way we do. Fortunately, because this room, they reset and walk a decent ways every time after running too far. It does give us opportunities to wail on these guys for free. We just need to hop off, like I said, when they do the right combo, which is that one. And that right there is a good example as to why we get hit sometimes. Here we were just a little bit off to the side and we got hit. Fortunately, these guys are pretty easy to evade. I obviously could have grabbed hold of that guy's head because this guy is already halfway on its health bars. I would prefer to take him out of the fight. Because if I only have to worry about one, I'm going to be happy. But yeah, Eliminators is not the fun part of this fight. Interestingly enough, Elder Ogres are actually kind of smoother. For whatever reason, Elder Ogres are a lot easier to defeat than these guys. So are Garm. I don't think this is the right one. Oh, it is. But yeah, Garm are a pretty easy fight. And Living Armor. But Eliminators are just so stout, unless you knock them over. And we don't really have the means to do so. There, we were in the right spot, so we don't get hit by the big hammer swings. So we got to do a lot of damage. If he charges at us one more time, we might be able to close this guy out. And then we get to focus exclusively on the second guy. We'll see. We got lucky there that we didn't get hit. We decided to risk it because he was one hit. And we don't die from one hit, so if we didn't get it, it wouldn't have been the end of the run. But we kind of risked it for the biscuit there. Clearly it paid off, but it was a little bit awkward. That's generally what happens right there. When he does the hammer swing, we often just get hit. The reason we risked it there was because we gambled and won the time before that. So we were like, ooh, we can probably gamble and win again, right? No. So, oh well. Fortunately, like I said before, we get to just kind of wail on these guys. Doesn't make it any more interesting, though. I will say, like, this is a slow fight, obviously. I don't think we've had a method of killing Eliminators that's slower than this in any of our runs. But even with how slow Eliminators are, this is not the slowest run on the channel. We just uploaded a Warrior run that's, like, quite long. Like, almost 3 hours and 30 minutes long, something like that. This one's going to clock in, I think, just under 3 hours. Between... maybe not just under 3 hours, probably right at 3 hours, actually, between the two videos. But it's not the longest run, though. And you would think, fists only, it's gonna be a huge pain, right? It's not that bad. We also just did a Mystic Knight run. That one's about 3.5 hours as well. Although that one's not up. I'm talking about the shield only one. I don't remember how long the Mystic Knight no-hit run is. But yeah, this run does not end up being the longest run, despite only using fists and how disadvantageous it sounds. It's actually not that bad for whatever reason. Unfortunately, we got him between the chest and the wall. We need him to kind of scoot his way out. We need to kind of... That was a big hit. That's not what we wanted. He's only got a health bar left. I don't know why he's so gung-ho about swinging his hammer into the wall. Generally, they reset and start walking backwards sooner than that. Not sure why he was so gung-ho, like I said, but can't be helped. But we got him. And as before, we have curatives that we can use. They're in the room. I mean, we picked up some good Kingwarish. There's all these crates that we can break for different things. I want to say the chest over in the hallway by the next boulder can often have an auspicious incense in it. So that would probably be what I'd prefer to use, because it's going to be one curative I could use to heal. There's a couple different thoughts as to when I want to use different curatives. There's two things: efficiency and the use of an item. Like using one item that's like really good cure to heal a lot. That way I don't have to use it at like an awkward point where the next enemies that I'm fighting are really strong, so I need to have more health than normal. So I might use like a cure that's a little bit more potent than I'd like, simply to top myself off, because I lack something to get me to the higher health point differently. We're going to run past here. We're going to go up to... Oh, okay, we go back. We're going to kill this guy, and then we're going to go into the Warrior's Respite to talk to Barrick. We need to replenish our supply of coin purses of charity. The reason we need to replenish our supply of coin purses of charity is I don't want to walk out to the harbor, and we're not guaranteed to have Barrick spawn when we go to... I don't remember what the name of the shortcut room is, but after Gazer, we're not guaranteed to have Barrick spawn in there. As you note, we are heavy. And it's mostly because we picked up those curatives. The coin purses of charity are the lion's share of my weight. But ignoring that, it's still picking up. We were still average, I want to say. Picking up the curatives is what pushes us over, but we need to pick those up, so I don't mind being heavy. It helps that we don't really consume stamina for our abilities, so it doesn't really make a huge difference in terms of what we elect to do. Here I pick up the barrel so I can throw it at him. I just want it to interrupt this guy so that I can hop on him. That's all. If he was going to spew poison back to back to back to back, it makes it kind of tricky to hop on his head. Because one, he bends over and does weird shit. But two, he can move in ways that makes it so that I have to like climb into poison to deal damage to him. And he's stepped into his poison, so we actually took a lot of damage there, but there was a chance that didn't happen, and we tried to take it, and unfortunately it didn't happen. Or it did end up happening, so we lost a bunch of health, but that was the point in throwing the barrel at him. It wasn't like to get cheeky damage, it was just to get the stagger off on him, to give myself a window to climb up, which worked. Yeah, here we interrupted his poison spew. I can climb back up. It's the same concept. Part of the reason why I keep getting hit here is I'm not in the right spot. You want to be just slightly down on the back of his head, but you want to be largely up top. Similar to Eliminators, these guys are not very quick. Fortunately, they don't have nearly as much health as Eliminators, so we actually get to move through a bit faster. But it is not what we are, it's not what we're looking for. We would have much preferred the Saurians at this point of the room. However, if we have the Saurian configuration, the other part of the room is actually, once again, Eliminators with greater goblins, but there's 2 Eliminators, so this is probably still the better configuration. Because we only have 3 poisoned undead in this configuration, and the amount of time it took us to kill 1 poisoned undead was less than it took us to kill probably... it was probably about the same amount of time as like half of an Eliminator's health bars, which is, you know, a little bit better pacing. These guys also require a lot less I don't know what word I wish to use. Just a lot less of the precise hopping on, hopping off, moving to the right spot multiple times because we have to hop off for certain moments and things like that. That's a good example of the gas. We didn't have the light kind of blooming out. That's the gas I was talking about earlier in the Word of Regret. We do not have the Ring of Desiccation this run. At the first attempts that I did, or the practice runs that I did to see like where we would strategize different things, I actually had the Ring of Desiccation and I had the Barbed Nails equipped at times as well. Like I had all of those with me. Ultimately, we never ended up using them because we just don't get a whole lot of value. We don't really do that good of damage unless we have both Barbed Nails equipped. End of story. Not having both Barbed Nails equipped and then choosing some sort of utility ring, whether it be the Ring of Desiccation or the Barbed Nails for stagger knockdown, didn't seem to change whether we like got a knockdown in a fight. When it comes to the Barbed Nails, and for the Ring of Desiccation, it didn't really make the fight any better just because our damage gets neutered. So we opt to just maintain the Bloody Knuckles the whole way through. So I put the other rings in storage, which gave us a little bit more leniency in terms of like which curatives we could grab for the run. Because on the previous attempts, we would actually not run out of inventory space, but we'd get very heavy very quickly. And here we can just maintain heavy. I don't like being heavy most of the time, but I am not going to be happy about being very heavy. The difference is noticeable, in my opinion. Now, before we go into the sewer, I expect I'd probably take my lantern off and put it back on, right? Just for the light. But I might choose not to. Oh, okay. It was out of oil. It wasn't... I'm not drenched. It was just out of oil. Interesting. But yeah, that was our first Pyre Pipe. We will grab some of those. We don't use them like nearly as consistently as other things. Combustion is the fire move that they'll cast. Combustion absolutely destroys us. We lost one of our attempts to a Combustion in this very room. So you'll see I'm going to go straight for the sorcerer type guys. The physical guys, they do good damage to me, don't get me wrong. They are scary in their own right for sure. But Combustion absolutely slaps. Combustion was literally doing like thousands of damage to me in one go. And I was just like, oh. Isn't that exciting? These guys are being very generous with the Hearthspell drops, so we're gonna take that any day. Now, one thought we had was whether we would use Sanctuary this run. We opted to not go for Sanctuary just because it gives us value when we're low health, but there were plenty of abilities that would deal more damage to us when we were at higher levels of health that we were afraid would still kill us from the green, because you don't get the damage reduction until you're in the red. But if a move progresses you into the red, it doesn't get any damage reduction, it just does the full damage. So that was a problem. There we used a bunch of potent green Warsh. The reason for that is the potent green Warsh, because we have so many of it, it's actually a decent amount of weight. So the healing to weight ratio for that specific item is not very good. And we're getting to the point where there's not going to be too many enemies that hit weekly any longer. Really, it's just the Fortress of Remembrance. And that's the only one I could think of that actually doesn't have like that strong of enemies. I don't know why, but the item drops that came out of that guy like exploded out of his body and launched. It was kind of weird, kind of silly. Just like he tossed him on death or something. That hurt. Now, King Warish is pretty good. It's less than 0.2 kilos for weight, but it heals actually quite a good amount. So getting rid of the Hearthspud is a little bit more, probably power to weight ratio wise. A little bit more efficient. Obviously, Hearthspud itself has a high amount of efficiency if you can recover both stamina and health at the same time. Vigilite protects against blindness, or restores vision. Cures blindness, I suppose is the word I should use. I want lightning to be the cast, and it is. If I was a little bit faster, we could have jumped onto his face. But he did lightning twice. So here, we wait for the lightning cast because the ice spikes hurt a lot more. The Ingle hurts a lot more. The lightning thing doesn't really hurt that much in comparison. It also does not stagger us in the same way that... what is it called? In the same way that Ingle does or the ice spikes do. So what we do is we wait for the lightning ball, we jump onto its face, because if we get hit, it doesn't ruin the system, and then we just wail on the eye. Once you get him past a certain point, he'll summon the cannon. The health point that he'll summon the cannon seems to be a little bit different based off of how much damage you're doing. If you're doing low damage, he'll do it when you get to 4 health bars missing. But the more damage you do, like, the further he'll go before he'll drop. I don't really know why. Here we jump onto the eye and grab him because we don't do nearly as much damage hitting the cannon as we do punching his face. Part of that's because we have the Strider climbing bonuses, as well as I'm pretty sure we have Opportunism. I know we had it for some of the practice runs. I'm pretty sure we kept it because it was more damage. There you saw Macabre Sculpture. I already have all 30 Macabre Sculptures from the first time we came through Bitterblack Isle. This is New Game Plus, technically, so I don't care about getting another set. I just don't. Now we have 10 King Warish. That's fantastic. Even with 10 King Warish, it's still only 1.8 kilos, which is less than 2 Harspud sauces, because I'm pretty sure 1 Harspud sauce is 0.6. So it's pretty good. But with that, that's the end of Gazer. So the first third of Bitterblack Isle is complete. On to the second wing, which is the Fortress of Remembrance. I do not see ghosts, which is nice. The ghost configuration is actually faster because we could kill the ghost with 1 shot. This one has 3 poison undead. Here, 2 more later, and then yet again 2 more even further. So we have like 7 poison undead, which we have to deal with, which is pretty slow. However, I'm happy because we don't have the opportunity to stock up on coin purses of charity between now and the certainly the room after Dark Bishop, if Barrack is there. If Barrack isn't there, we don't have a place to do it until the Arisen's Refuge in the Bloodless Stockades. The problem is, if we had ghosts in here, there are, 3 ghosts up here, 2 ghosts down there, 2 ghosts down there. So there's 7 ghosts in this room. If I'm lucky, I can get like 1 or 2. I won't miss any, and I'll get like 1 for most of them, but 2 for a few. So we're looking at probably, at best, maybe 5 that I would use. But we also have 4 ghosts in the... We're going to lure this guy to jump off, and successfully lured. If we didn't have the poisoned undead at the same time, we might have chosen to fight him, and it's not super quick, but we might have chosen that. Here we're going to lure the poisoned undead off, simply because it's actually just faster than me wailing on these guys, usually. If it was faster for me to punch these guys out, I just would, but this run's long, so we try to just speed it up when we can, and gravity's a really effective tool in those scenarios. How does it say? I actually need to drag this guy a little further up. They do take a little step forward whenever they spew their poison, and that makes it... That usually is what launches them off, see? But you do need to have them at the right angle, and it can be tricky to get them there. The other thing about electing to kill them with gravity here is that it's safer. I don't get hit by them, generally, so we can kind of avoid them entirely while letting them fall. I need him to like come up just a little bit more for me to be happy with his positioning before transitioning to the other side. That should do it. Oh, yeah. Perfect. But yeah, at any rate, so back to the wraiths. So we have probably 5 that we would use here if we're really efficient. Probably 3 in the Pilgrim's Gauntlet if we get the ghost configuration. So that's already 8, and that's if I'm getting multiples at least some of the time and not missing. If I'm missing and getting only 1, I'm probably already about to run out. I'm probably used like 18 by just doing those 2 rooms. And then we can get ghosts again in the Forsaken Cathedral. There's, I think, 4 or 5 wraiths in the Forsaken Cathedral. I don't remember. So we are pretty tight on resources. And then, if we didn't get Barrack in the, if we did not get Barrack in the shortcut room between the Dark Bishop fight and the Rotwood Depository, we then don't have an ability to stock up before the Rotwood Depository without going to the harbor, which I don't want to do. Because going to the harbor, like, re-rolls the dungeon and stuff. I would like to have 1 long seed if I can. But, you know, if I have to, I will. But, there's a chance that the Rotwood Depository has, let me see, how many ghosts? 2, 3, 4, 5, plus a living armor, which we already said requires 6 at minimum. So there's a lot. There is a lot. I'm surprised that that staggered me. We were 1 really far away, and I thought we had timed it well. That man is nonplussed about losing his tail. That was kind of interesting. Okay. Now we're going to have 2 more Banshees over here. As you saw, we do decent damage to them. They're not the worst thing. We'll just tank their damage. We do have the Bastion augment equipped, if I remember correctly. We chose to go that route instead of... We could use that item, actually, the Jewel of Vestitude. That's, healing. But I want to say I think we specified I wouldn't use any other tools beyond the ones that I brought. Now that I'm thinking about it, I want to say my conversation with chat was that we would only use the tools I brought, so if we found a tool that was useful, we wouldn't use it. So, like, occasionally you'll see me, like, pass up on Throw Blast or other things that would speed this up. And we elect not to. I think we... I'm trying to remember whether I picked a coin versus a charity at any point in the run. Or Conqueror's Periapt, for that matter. We might pick those up because they're curatives I bring with me. It's just like free restocking. I don't recall, though. Here I'm waiting for the 2 sirens to fly my way. I don't want to fight them while I'm trying to fight the golems. The golems should be extremely easy. We have good strength with our fists. We deal bludgeoning damage with our fists. They honestly should not be the big challenge. But I don't want to fight them with the birds because the birds will knock me off. Unfortunately, only 3 of them have aggroed, and there are 4. Oh, never mind. The 4th one just showed up. It sounded like we already broke the hand. We did. So, generally what I'll do after I break the hand is break the back. And the foot. What that does is makes it so that all of the... When he's on his knees like this, all of the medallions are accessible. So if he freezes while doing this, we should be able to kill him without any sort of having to wait for him to stand up to give us access to his hand or anything like that. So it makes it smooth. That's why I like the hand first and then the back. The back because the back will make him fall over. The only concerns I have is if the hand... There we hit the knee somehow. But my only concern is that if the hand is the medallion that freezes him, or the back for that matter, I'm a little bit in trouble. Look at how fast we climb as a Strider. Oh, so quick. Here we're just willing to break all of the medallions. As we wait, we technically have the chest and the hand left. It looks like I kind of forgot because it doesn't look like I'm trying to hit the chest at all. Oh, I think I just realized. Generally, you can still hit the chest when he's broken down like that. There we go. Perfect. You might take damage here. Nope, we barely beat it. Perfect. Beat the clock. That's the Pilgrim's Gauntlet. Moving back into the Fortress of Remembrance for Phase 2. Part 2. I shouldn't say Phase 2. We're in the same phase and configuration for the Pilgrim's Gauntlet. We're just in... Or not the Pilgrim's Gauntlet, the Fortress of Remembrance. We're just going into it for the second part because we only did one earlier. So we had the undead configuration. That means we should only have one Lich up here. We'll have 2 poison undead. I generally run past them because sometimes they'll just fall off of their own accord. That guy looks like he's going to. We'll see. Nope, he turned. But we're only going to have one Lich up here. There will be a second Lich down below, though. This configuration does not have eliminators, which is nice. The Ghost configuration has 1 eliminator up here with 2 Liches, and then 2 eliminators down below with 2 Wraiths. Just to see if we can push them off, which we get that one. And that guy slapped himself off the cliff. Next we have the Lich. The Lich obviously is not my favorite. Just like with Fighter or Warrior, we don't really have much in the way of hitting him. Because he's just too far from the floats are at. Another added complexity is when I do finally get the opportunity to hit him, he can always be, he's always able to drop a pustule basically on my head. I don't want him to do that. I live in fear of that eventuality. If he drops a pustule on my head, generally what happens is you can be cursed, but you're almost certainly going to be receiving debilitations for strength down, magic down, even defenses down for both regular defense and magic defense. Basically what it does is it slows it down. Obviously if you have debilitation resistances, you won't have those effects. You'll just take damage from it. But we have not indexed into any debilitation resistance, pretty much whatsoever. So sometimes when he gets down to the ground like that, and we get to hit him, it's just a bait, and he ends up hitting up with the pustule, and we're sad. He's lowered twice now, and he's a little bit more than halfway dead, so we're actually kind of happy with the progress we've made thus far. I should not have opened that chest, because sometimes you can use those chests to actually lift you, like to stand on them and then jump up to hit him, but the likelihood is relatively limited. Unfortunately, There we only got to hit him twice, but we do what we can. So generally my strategy is to kind of walk away from them and have my weapon sheathed. I don't know if it's just like me taking my personal experience and trying to make it a ritual. like a sports ritual, you know what I mean? Like athletes that follow a certain pattern before a game for good luck. I don't know if that's like what I'm doing by doing this, but it feels like when you are walking away from them and your weapon is sheathed, that they are more likely to drop to the ground. But again, it might just be me being crazy, and it might just be in my head. But at any rate, that's what I'm doing. That's why you see me pretty far away, and that's why you'll see me oftentimes sheathe my weapon, even though we don't even have a weapon here. But there is a difference in your stance, and more importantly, the camera between the two. Now, without a weapon, the camera differences are pretty minimal. But like, even if you just have a shield, for example, and you have it sheathed versus not sheathed, there's like a different level of zoom between the two. And it's more noticeable if you have actual weapons. Liches, Eliminators, Poison Undead, these are pretty much the three enemies that take the most time for us to kill. Dragons aren't that bad. Death isn't that bad because we only have one health bar that we need to really deal with at a time, and then frankly he gives us good openings consistently. But these guys are really slow down the run. One option is to start descending the tower. If we start descending the tower, there's that curse bait that I was talking about. There's that purifying brew that we can use to get rid of curse. We also have a panacea from before, so we could use that as well. But since there's a purifying brew and that specifically gets rid of curse, we may as well. You'll note we also have a magic down, and I want to say that's a defense down. That might be magic defense. I don't remember which icon's which. But it is, I think that's regular defense. I would have to see like the magic defense icon and then be like, oh yeah, that's this one. I want to say that's regular defense. I did not see us get strength down debuff, but that's probably because whatever we're wearing just happens to have that debilitation resistance. With the Lich dead, we're going to come down here. We still have 2 poisoned undead. We're going to likely attempt to bait them off the cliff. Or launch them off with the explosive barrel. Unfortunately, we failed. And I've brought dishonor. Now I will no longer be able to find a suitable wife for my clan. Of fisticuff happy bandits, I guess. I don't know. Oh well. One obviously already ran off. If we get the other one to charge at me or even do the arm swipes where it staggers forward while doing so. It'll probably fall into that hole as well. So we're not overly concerned, but we will have to be a little bit patient here. Not nearly as much as the Lich, though. The Lich is such a pain because it gives us these small windows and then we have to take them. These guys, they're just slow, but they'll eventually jump down the hole. They typically will move very linearly towards you. So if you are able to situate a hole between you guys, you and the poisoned undead, they will often just walk into it. So the broken bridge there and the broken bridge out here are both excellent for catching them, more or less. There I'm comparing the weights between the two of them. And as I said before, we're going to have the second Lich down here. We're going to have these Skeleton Knights, which I actually kind of forgot about. But after these Skeleton Knights, we're also going to have a couple more poisoned undead. I don't remember whether it's 2 or 3. For whatever reason, I'm thinking 3, but I actually only... Oh no, it's definitely 3. It's definitely 3. Because I'm trying to... I'm remembering the... On runs where I have a bow, how I launch them off the edge, and I have 2 from one side and 1 from the other. So, this is always a bit of an awkward fight. I want to convince these guys to fall into the circle, or into the hole, which takes its time. But I also want to hit this Lich whenever I can. But because there's like all 3 of the poisoned undead as well as the Lich, it becomes a little bit awkward to make things happen the way we'd like. One poisoned undead just fell. It looked like, yep, there's the health, or the experience drop. The more enemies we kill, the easier it becomes to accomplish the goals we have. But it will be a bit goofy, I guess, the way we have to deal with it. That pustule's like wigging out. I don't remember that happening on our actual run when we were doing this. Just absolutely wigging out. So when a Lich casts Combustion, they will pop. If you're like any sort of distance away from them, they will often just completely miss you. And it's kind of goofy, frankly. There we were almost directly underneath it, so able to cast the Combustion, no problem at us. But even like this distance, that's an angle. But even from that distance, if it was Combustion, like there's a decent likelihood that it just doesn't reach us because it casts it too short. Okay, that's some decent damage. I say decent because it's not good, but it is decent. As before, we have our fists sheathed. Because that seems to be the play. This is a Combustion. It might be close enough to us. It wasn't. See, like even if we hadn't moved, it would have just whipped. And we're not that far from him. I don't know what it is about Liches and their Combustion, but it's always a little bit goofy. That's a curse, so we'll deal significantly less damage now. I don't know if I guess I don't have a... I'm trying to think. I don't remember seeing a Panacea in our inventory. Interventive. I don't think that should work because it should be a magic debilitation. Yeah, curse is magic debilitation. It's just affecting our physical sense. Okay, there's the Panacea. I guess we did opt to use the fantasy. Oh, I didn't see the last poison undead fall into the pit. That is excellent for us. That is good for 2 reasons. One, we don't have to wait. We don't have to do that after we kill this guy, which is nice. But the other thing is that we no longer have to worry about poison being on the ground. Poison being on the ground just is a bit of a frustrating area denial. It's free damage a lot of the time. We don't have to worry about it. Now all we have to do is worry about the pustules that the Lich will drop. But as often, we can typically kind of evade it. Not have to worry about it so much. The only time the pustules really have a chance is if we're hitting him and he drops one, or if he like is extremely close to one and I think I'm far enough away to hit him but not the pustule, but then I punch the pustule anyway. Those are like the 2 circumstances by which we might get hit. Okay, there's a pustule. The pustule can only be dropped at like a certain interval, so because he just dropped a pustule, I'm fairly safe to hit him if he comes down relatively quickly. But of course, there's no guarantee that he does, so by the time he lowers, there's almost always going to be a risk, just because of how long it takes between him becoming accessible. And there we got him, but like it's very possible he could have dropped a pustule like every second, so we're quite happy with that. Tower of Treasons Repaid. We have the birds configuration, the succubi, and the metal golem, and the strigoi. This configuration is nice. It's less hectic. We don't have the caster skeletons, which are easy to kill, but the caster there's one that we can't reach at all, so we have to ignore him. But the caster skeletons require us to hit them, and there's some all the way at the bottom of the room, and we can have a cursed dragon spawn before we reach the bottom of the room. It makes things very hectic. I don't like that configuration. This configuration, however, can have death, so I don't want death to spawn before I've killed too many of these birds. Just because if I get grabbed by one of the succubi like we just were, it's very easy for him to just hit me. We'll grab that moldy apple. It doesn't heal for that much, but it does heal, so we'll take it. There are 13 succubi and 1 strigoi, so while I do these runs, I typically am counting the entire time so that I can keep track of how many I have. There you saw we use the tech where we grab the strigoi. If the strigoi is on the ground, you can just grab it. You can also pick up like a crate or a jug or anything and throw it at the strigoi when it's flying, and it'll fall down. We're just going to use this to basically keep it chain crowd controlled so we can just punch it over and over and over again. It's without a doubt the easiest way to deal with the gargoyle at lower level or the strigoi even at higher level when you're kind of weak like we are. When you don't have the ability to really reach him. It's not that we don't have damage, it's that it's like we have to punch him. It's tricky to land our damage, right? But yeah, as I was saying, there's 13 succubi, so typically as I go through this room, I will hang out by this cage to lure them to me with relative safety, and then I will count how many I've killed. Death has spawned. I can hear his music. This is the music that plays before Death spotted you, but has spawned into the room. Death is extremely likely to find me. It's just a matter of time. I don't know how many I've killed at this point. I have not been counting. And sometimes I do lose count or miscount or I forget to count. Because I do stream these live and I'm talking to Twitch a lot of the time. When we're doing this room. So I'll be like, wait a minute, how many have I done? But I don't remember whether we were keeping a solid count here or not. But fortunately, I feel like we've killed a good number. So we're probably a bit safe in terms of, like, if we went out, because we're going to have to move soon, because Death will attempt to kill us, right? If he gets any wiser and moves, it'll be hard to evade his attacks while staying in the same spot like we are. So there's only going to be a couple though. A couple more succubi, most likely, just because I can't imagine it being too many more than what we've already encountered. And like I said, I haven't been counting, so it's possible that when I did this run live, I was counting, as that's typical of what I do. So it's very likely that I know exactly how many I have left, and it seems like we don't have any. We haven't seen any hit. All of these medallions you can punch in this room. Every vocation can kill these medallions because they can all simply punch them. It is not even difficult to reach them. This is probably the hardest medallion to get. You have to kick it. And you have to line up, and lining up the foot correctly is tricky. Oh, no, we had one more. Now what's interesting is that if that one had grabbed me, it probably would have pushed me and I would have slid down. But while you are grabbed by them, you can't take fall damage. So what ends up happening is... Where the hell did we go? Oh, there it is. So what ends up happening is you get an express train down to the bottom, or express elevator to the bottom. And you take damage, but you don't take fall damage. So it actually isn't the worst thing. It probably would have helped us evade death a touch. But again, it would have been dangerous because we then would have been on the floor with death, and metal golem. It's not necessarily safe. Yeah, we'll evade that. Death is now in like a similar plane as us, so lucky we can actually start wailing on him here. We do need to knock out a health bar of death for him to leave, so we'll start working on that. I do not like fighting death here. Death is just a bit scary is what it is. I may elect to ignore death for a moment and clear the medallions. I don't remember if I do that, but I know that was a strategy that we use some of the time. That way we can fight death on the ground. Just because we do really bad damage, and it just takes so long for us to kill him up here. I ate that moldy apple because I was thinking that it would no longer keep me in the heavy stage, but it did. So, oh well. Yeah, see, we're not doing that much damage per hit, so... There we go. Nice. Because we're not doing that much damage per hit, and, like, we have just awkward terrain to deal with. The different levels, because the ground is sloped, the bridges, having to evade Death's Lantern and Scythe is relatively awkward, simply because we just can't go in any direction like we usually can. We have to go very specific directions, and sometimes it's kind of tricky. But if we clear out the golem down here by wailing on the metal golem, we don't really have to worry about it. Now the only thing in the room is death, so we can focus entirely on evading his lantern and punching him in the ropes. I'd say the face, but we don't reach that. Instead, we punch him in the ghosty bottom. Now, what's annoying is he decided to leave before we took out a health bar, but he decided to leave because we just took so long. But realistically, even if I had stayed up top and wailed on him, we only really lost about 30 seconds of time hitting him. We probably would have only gotten about 10 more punches in. And as you saw, our punches aren't anything special. We're one-shotting those guys, whereas before we were two-shotting them because we're hitting them in the face. We're just getting good punches in. Now we have the Goblin Shaman Vile Eye configuration up here. That means we're going to have Goblin Shamans and the Silver Knight in a moment down at the bottom of these stairs. And then, more importantly, we're going to have the Goblin Shaman Mage Pawn configuration in the final room before Dark Bishop. The reason that's important is because that tells me that I did not need to use the Coin versus Charity at all this wing, or this wing, which is exactly what I would like. I don't want to have to use the Coin versus Charity. I want, if I could punch everything to death, that's what I want to do. So not having to use Conqueror Periapts yet, or Coin versus Charity is very, very satisfying for me. This guy's a little bit annoying. Not terrible, mind, just annoying. Tried to dodge roll, but I was too slow. The animation is just too long for the recovery, I guess. It was probably just like barely not enough time. That's okay. More Hearthspud. As before, we're going to pick up pretty much every curative we can find, because we just need them. A little surprised we moved beyond that mushroom. But, you know, we don't use that much stamina most of the time, simply because we don't have any abilities. So our attacks are not using stamina unless we're climbing. And we've probably spent 10 times the amount of stamina sprinting from place to place than we have climbing on things. So for whatever reason, when you do this room, the Goblin Shamans down here at the bottom will not aggro to you. They'll cast one spell, and then after that singular spell, they won't aggro until you start moving down. It's kind of odd. At any rate, Dark Bishop. Dark Bishop's kind of an easy fight in terms of, like, what we have to do, but it's actually not. It's very easy to have a problem here. Our biggest concerns are not the Cursed Dragon or even the Bishop itself. Our biggest concern is the fact that, well, there goes a good portion of our stamina. It's like 40% of our stamina gone. Our big concerns is that the pustules that the Bishop can drop will neuter our damage in a huge way. From what I understand, it does the reduction in damage before we do the multiplication, I think. So we're multiplying a much smaller number, so it compounds aggressively. While we still can kind of do damage to the Bishop itself when we're cursed, we don't really do anything to the dragon when it stands back up if we're cursed. So we need to avoid getting cursed at all costs. If that means we avoid taking hits when we otherwise probably normally would because it's low to the ground. For example, there we only hit it once. The only reason we hit it one time instead of two is because we didn't want to get hit by that pustule, which just dropped. Now, I want to actually lower this guy's health to about like 2 health bars missing for this phase, which is the resurrection. The reason for that is because if I lower the health to like 2 health bars missing and change, it's far more likely that the bishop will climb into the dragon at the start of this cycle, this phase. I'm really happy I didn't land on top of that pustule on the ground. That would have been a problem. Unfortunately, we got torpored, so that's a different problem. But it's not a crazy one. Like, torpor doesn't really do anything to us other than slow us. And we have an interventive, which torpor is a physical debilitation. Despite being a magical attack, it is a physical debilitation. Was it Lassitude, I think, is the cast that you can use for torpor. At any rate, he just dropped a pustule, so I know I can just wail on him. The other thing is Furor, which is the ability that it's casting. Furor, the location that the Bishop casts Furor is based off of where you were standing when he began the cast. So I was standing nowhere near him at the start of the cast, so when he does Furor, I know without a doubt that I am safe to just wail on him. Unfortunately, I can't wail on him there because he's got a pustule right underneath him. He just dropped another one, which is nice. That tells me that if he moves, I'm good. However, here he's casting the resurrection spell, so instead we're going to come over here to the dragon. The bishop is at 3 health bars missing, so that tells me that the dragon is almost certainly going to have the bishop climb into it. That is what we want, actually. We deal more damage to the dragon before the bishop gets in, so we want to hit it as many times as possible before that point. But we actually deal okay damage when the bishop is inside of it. The reason we want the bishop inside of it is because of this right here. When you knock down the dragon while the bishop is inside of it, the bishop is ejected and rendered unconscious for, probably like 30 seconds. And that's all the time we need. And so we get a nice, clean kill. That was actually pretty good. We had a couple attempts in our practice rounds where we would get cursed by a pustule, just not respecting it enough. And it would, make us completely neutered and the fight becomes extremely long. But not this time. At any rate, that's going to be it for the second wing of Bitterblack Isle and the first video for this run. We are going to have this split into 2 videos, so be sure to check out the next one, which should release tomorrow. But you get to see the conclusion of our fist run. I want to thank you guys for watching. We do stream these runs live over at twitch.tv/localticobrohe. I stream Monday through Friday. I hope to see you guys there. Cheers, everybody.